How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today, Boulder, Colorado is one of the most beautiful, most photographed cities in all of the United States, certainly in Colorado. It is also one of the most expensive places that you will find to live. Home prices, median prices, nearing $1 million. A wildfire that has caused insurance premiums to skyrocket, and a Google Drive that might say 30 minutes to Denver but can easily turn into an hour on any given day. So today we're going to talk about 7 honest reasons why people might look at Boulder but end up going somewhere else, and why the vast majority of people moving to Colorado do just that. We're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. Listen, there are 2 things we do here. 1, we talk all things eating, living, breathing, experiencing the Denver metro area and Colorado Front Range. And as a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado, I'm helping people like yourselves move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, just know that I'm always the person. Answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails if and when you need me. Now let's get into this idea of why Boulder, Colorado may or may not be the right fit for you. So quick perspective on this video as we jump into it. Listen, if you're working at NCAR, if you're working at NIST, if you're at the Google complex in Boulder, if you're working at CU, the Colorado, University of Colorado, excuse me, and your wages are keeping up with being able to live in Boulder, some of this won't apply to you. But listen, if you're making New York, San Francisco money, and you're moving to Boulder, still might want to pay attention. And this is really for a lot of the folks I talk to that are moving here from Texas and Florida and the Midwest, and areas where the town they live in might be similar in expense even to a Denver, but Boulder being different. That is really what we're talking about here. So it's no surprise that our number 1 reason for not moving to Boulder is going to be the sticker shock. When we talk about Boulder being expensive, I don't mean that it's expensive compared to Denver. I mean, it is expensive compared to some of the most pricier places to live. It's like a San Francisco expensive by a Colorado standard. So your median price in Boulder as of December of 2025 sat at about $948,000. Single family average overall house sat at about $1.125 million. Your average single family home selling for well over $1 million. The cost of living in Boulder is 35 to 42% above the national average. It's 29% above the rest of Colorado. Again, Colorado is pretty expensive from a national average standpoint. Boulder is 29% above the Colorado average. It is said that the income required to be at about 30% debt versus income on your median home in Boulder, again, about 1/3 of your income going towards a home, means you would have to make roughly $321,000 in family income for that to be the case. Now, does everybody make $320,000? Clearly not. The median income in Boulder sits at about $80,000, again, as of the making of this video. Now for me, listen, I grew up in Lakewood, Colorado, about 45 minutes south of Boulder. I grew up watching Boulder as that city. It's the one where houses cost double what they did in the rest of the metro. It was the type of place that everyone just kind of accepted that was going to be the case. The difference now is that the gap isn't double anymore. The gap is triple. And it's widened during the stretch of years where wages didn't move as much, but Boulder real estate certainly did. And when you think about like pre-2015 Boulder, it was still expensive, but a dual income professional family, they could still find a starter house in Boulder if they hunted. That version of Boulder for the most part is gone. The entry point now is what it is. It's not pretending to be otherwise. And so a lot of people, they look at the lifestyle. We'll talk about, obviously there's a lot to like about Boulder, but when they look at it, that's the first thing that hits them is the price point they're going to see, whether they're buying or renting. And so as we'll talk about in this video, what a lot of people do instead is they start to look at Boulder in that price point is they start to look at the outskirts. They start to look at towns nearby like Louisville, Lafayette, Superior, even getting over to Erie. The price constraint, Louisville, you can find a home between $700 and $780. Lafayette, you can find a place between $640 and $710. Superior, pretty similar there. And then Erie, you get a little farther out. Erie is going to be your most affordable area that still gives you pretty quick access to Boulder. Now, why does this occur? Obviously, Boulder is extremely desirable. It's got one of the most, if not the most, just fantastic walkable streets in all of the Denver metro, or Colorado for that matter. In Pearl Street, you've got the university, you've got these majestic foothills sitting in the background. Boulder is an incredible place to look at visually. One of the biggest reasons for that is its green space. So you've got the Flatiron Mountains to one side of Boulder, but you also have about 45,000 acres of protected land that have been protected by voters since 1967. And there is no sign of that ever changing. So you have the city boundary, and it's encircled by mountains on the west, and it's protected by this open space to the east and to the south, and then you have county land to the north. So this green space that wraps around Boulder, it makes it this majestic. I mean, you come over, I say it all the time, you come over Route 36 on your way into Boulder, and you just come over this hill, and there's Boulder laid out with all that green space around it. There's no building in that area. Jobs to housing ratio is roughly 1.93 jobs per housing unit. So you have 2 jobs for every 1 house that exists. New construction, it's minimal, doesn't really exist. Permitting is slow, density is consistent. And this is the number one reason that it's not going to fix affordability in Boulder. They're not going to build in this open space. Boulder has been deliberately surrounding itself with this protected open space since 1967. It's voter approved generation after generation after generation. And the political coalition that protects this open space, it also blocks density. That's been voted down time and time again. So you don't have a lot of tall structures. You don't have a lot of tall apartments, tall condos. You don't have a lot of multi-units. Boulder is specifically keeping its construction limited as much as it can. You're going to see some changes in that based on state legislation, but not a lot is going to change in Boulder anytime soon. And so when you talk about the jobs versus housing, Boulder having nearly 2 jobs for every house, the people who run the restaurants, the hospitals, the schools, they commute in. They commute in from Lafayette and Louisville and Superior. That is pretty routine. This isn't a recent thing. I've been watching this my entire life since I was a kid. And every time somebody proposes adding density in Boulder, that same coalition shows up to the city council meetings and they vote it down and they don't lose. They've been winning for 60 years on this issue. So nationally, price is correct when you go through certain situations and when supply increases, it just corrects itself. In Boulder, supply cannot increase. And so that rule just doesn't apply here. It is literally in a bubble when it comes to real estate. And when I say in a bubble real estate, I don't mean a bubble that can pop. I mean a bubble that's more shielded from issues outside of it. Now, on the flip side, I need to be honest about something here. That's the same reason why some people absolutely love Boulder. That same supply constraint, that same price issue is exactly what makes Boulder a stable, long-term store of value. And if you can afford to get in there, you know that you can count on it, for decades and decades to come. So the same thing that limits people's opportunities to get into Boulder is the same reason that people in Boulder love it so much. And I understand that as well. The third reason is that, among other issues, the Marshall Fire, which occurred a few years ago in Superior and running up into Boulder, changed insurance in this area drastically. And listen, when we're talking about affordability, talking about a fire that leveled a lot of homes and wrecked a lot of families, I certainly don't want to point to, it screwed up the finances after the fact. It has. So the Marshall Fire happened on December 30th, 2021. Unfortunately, we had snow the very next day, just kind of one of those devastating moments where over 1,000 homes burned. It was the most destructive wildfire in Colorado history. Debatable what caused it. We can talk about some down power lines, you name it. But this situation, underinsured, 74% of affected homeowners, you had some underinsured, and then you had 36% of people who were severely underinsured. This is one I feel the most responsibility, to really walk you through, because it's one that can stop a closing cold. If people are trying to buy a home or people trying to move here. So before December 30th, 2021, Boulder County had normal insurance. They had a normal insurance market. You called your agent, you got a quote. There really wasn't a whole lot to it. And I remember exactly where I was as this fire started. And as it started, kind of minimal, and then just really started to expand. And these wildfires happened in the mountains. In August of that year, we had one, but Marshall happened in the suburbs. It happened in December. It happened on grass. We hadn't had any snow that year. And it just changed the entire property insurance market in our state, starting right there in Boulder County. So one, you had multiple private insurers who decided to exit Boulder County. They stopped writing new policies. They didn't want the risk. Homeowners across Boulder, Superior, Louisville, Nederland, Lafayette, they've seen their premiums double, triple, they've seen their coverage straight up not get renewed because of this risk. The Boulder Reporting Lab interviewed more than 20 Boulder County residents who lost coverage or saw their premiums spike. Half of them saw premiums double, some of them nearly triple. This skyrocketing of insurance, you're talking about thousands of dollars each year. And so again, when you have a situation where during that fire, 3 out of 4 people who owned a home were underinsured, 1 out of 4, nearly 1 out of 3, or excuse me, a little over 1 out of 3 were severely underinsured. These companies see that risk, and that has been passed along to new and current homeowners. Now, we've talked a lot about finances, and obviously that is not the only reason that people are not going to or going to maybe think twice about moving to Boulder. So our fourth reason is the Boulder bubble and the reality of the fact that there is a Boulder bubble, if you will, from a personality standpoint, and they don't apologize for it. So Boulder is one of the most politically and culturally homogenous cities in the United States. And that's not me being mean. That's not me making it up. That is Boulder residents. I mean, they coined the phrase, the Boulder bubble. And it's something that people who, again, love it, absolutely love it. The local government leans hard left. They are unapologetic about it, whether you like it or not. Their social culture reflects that. The day-to-day at the farmer's market, at your kid's elementary school, at the coffee shop reflects it. If you love it, you're going to love it. If you hate it, just be aware that you're going to hate it. It is what it is. And Boulder has always had, for as long as I can remember, that reputation and that lifestyle. And so I tell people all the time, if you're coming in and you're a moderate or you have a conservative background, if you hunt, if you drive a truck and plan to keep driving it, if your lifestyle choices, don't necessarily line up with Boulder's dominant culture, you're going to feel friction in some ways, potentially. Do I think it's going to be overwhelming? No. I know plenty of conservative folks who live up in Boulder, but just be aware of that as you get there. And as I mentioned, growing up here, Boulder has always felt a little different. It's always felt a little more, we joke, we call it a little more granola. And again, there's some cool aspects of that. Boulder is a town where you don't honk your horn. I remember my very first trip to the town and sitting on a patio and someone just honked their horn and multiple people reacted as though it was something they had never heard before. And one person, I'll never forget it, this woman said, "That's not Boulder." So that's just kind of the lifestyle there. The tension, I won't pretend, isn't there. It's a community that brands itself as the most progressive in Colorado, and it's one of the most economically exclusive. The people who keep Boulder running, really can't afford to live there. It's a struggle there. And the contradiction is baked into the city. I mean, it really shows up in the culture every single day. So Boulder will tell you it's the most welcoming city in Colorado, and then it's quietly going to price out anyone who doesn't already agree with it. Hate me for that, but that's kind of my perspective. And so again, just kind of mentioning what a lot of people do, they love the allure of Boulder, they love a lot of the amenities, and listen, they even enjoy the culture, they enjoy the perspective, so they look for nearby areas that are a bit more affordable that have some of those same perspectives, again, including the culture. To that, I would include Denver itself to some perspective, but I would talk about Arvada, I would talk about Louisville, Fort Collins. Again, Fort Collins having some distance from Boulder, but these are all places that deliver. A lot of people who love Boulder and love that style. They love the lifestyle, the outdoors, the community, and yes, again, the culture, even the politics to some standpoint. They'll look in Louisville, they'll look in Lafayette, Superior, just down the road. They'll look a little farther down in Broomfield for the convenience at a more affordable standpoint. The fifth reason, and listen, this is a big one, and this is ones that my friends in Boulder talk to me all about, and that is the fact that downtown Boulder has a serious, visible, growing homelessness crisis. And I'm excited for the comments I'm going to get on this video, because this one surprises people to an extent, because when you see a photo of Pearl Street, it doesn't necessarily show it. Boulder Creek Trail is genuinely a great urban trail system. It runs right straight through downtown. It connects out to the foothills. In photos and brochures, it looks fantastic. On the ground, in the downtown stretch, there is visible homelessness on a consistent and growing presence. They talk about the Safe and Managed Spaces team. They cleared out about 2,500 encampments in a recent report. They had about 814 tons of debris in the last 3 years, but a lot of these encampments are back. And listen, I think the homeless situation in Boulder has always been there. It's always been somewhat accepted. It just got way too loose. So I want to be clear. I'm not blaming the unhoused population. I'm not a jerk. I'm not an a-hole. And I'm not knocking the city for not trying. It's a trend. But Boulder has thrown real political will and real money at this. The problem is bigger than what city resources can solve. And Boulder has a pretty mild climate. And historically, it's had a permissive approach to dealing with the homeless situation. And so that's where it's tough, because they've been, pretty permissive on a lot of these issues. And again, you have a climate that it can get cold, no question, but relatively mild by all standpoints. And that's a recipe for disaster. And 2026 makes this harder, not easier. Both Boulder City and Boulder County made significant budget cuts heading into this year. They have less staff, they have less outreach capacity, yet the same problem. So if you're considering Boulder, one thing I would make sure is walk the creek trail before you sign anything. Tuesday morning in October, not Saturday afternoon in June. I mean, that's the honest picture. Get out there, walk the creek, head downtown, take a look around, really get a feel for Boulder before you make that move. The last thing I'd add here, and this is strictly my opinion, I think Boulder isn't uniquely worse than a lot of metro areas. I don't think their homeless situation is worse. I think it has just not seen the type of improvement that local residents, and not what you would expect out of a town that is known for being pretty pricey, being pretty, pretty, and having that situation. Couple more to go, and this one is pretty easy, and that is drive time if Denver is important to you. So, I know I'm going to get comments because people love to tell me how fast they can get from one place to the other. And listen, we can Google map it all day. If you're talking about driving from South Boulder to Denver in off-peak, no traffic time frame, you could probably get there in 30 minutes. We're talking South Boulder to north, like the tip of Denver proper. You can make it in 30 minutes if you're flying. Realistically, that drive is a minimum of 45 minutes, often an hour, and it can extend to 75 minutes easy if there is any type of traffic situation, which happens a lot. Denver has traffic. You can have traffic in Boulder. You can have traffic along Route 36, which is your primary route, I should say, getting from Boulder down into Denver. And then obviously you have I-25. So do not move to Boulder thinking you have a 30-minute commute. You will be disappointed. Now, go ahead, get in the comments and tell me about how you make that drive in 20 minutes. I love when people tell me that. And there is also, there are buses that head to and from Boulder that can be convenient for people. Light rail has been something that has been talked about for a long period of time, but there still is no light rail system heading from Boulder to Denver. And finally, the seventh reason that I would bring up is the fact that most people who want Boulder or think they want Boulder, they like the Boulder area. They don't necessarily want Boulder. What I mean from that or by that is that they want to experience some of the things of Boulder. They want to get up to Pearl Street and enjoy it. They want to get over into the Flatirons and they want to go for a hike. They want that outdoor activity, all of those things, but and certainly they even want schools to accept. They want Boulder Valley School District, which is commonly one of the highest rated in the state. They don't necessarily want Boulder. The prices, the people, that's not the thing. So when we talk about Boulder, most people who say they want Boulder actually just want to live in the general Boulder area. They want the mountain views in the morning. They want trail access on a Wednesday after work. They want good coffee. They want a strong school. And yes, Boulder delivers all of that, but so does Louisville. So does Lafayette. So does Superior. And so does Erie in a lot of ways. One of the most common conversations I've had with people from this channel are people that are looking at Boulder, and I've suggested, hey, take a look at Lafayette, Louisville, and Superior. 3 areas very close to Boulder that just have a lot going for them. And time again, people who like Boulder and want to be near there end up settling in that area and really enjoy it. A little farther down the road with Broomfield. So the lifestyle is essentially the same in these areas. What changes is the price by $300,000, by $600,000 on the price of a home, by hundreds of dollars a month on a 1-bedroom, hundreds of dollars a month on a 2-bedroom if you're renting. And that's where these families that are relocating from Texas, Florida, California, Boulder is at the top of the list. It's a city that is easy to find. It's easy to Google. It looks fantastic. That's where a lot of people start. Then they start to look a little deeper. They start to look at the prices. They start to look at the insurance. They look at the homeless situation. They look at the drive times and they say to themselves, okay, maybe we don't want to afford Boulder. Maybe what we want is the lifestyle. So Louisville is located 15 minutes from Pearl Street. The Flatirons are visible from most neighborhoods there. Boulder Valley schools serve all of these towns. So as you're looking at Boulder and that is where you want to start exploring, listen, at the end of the day, Boulder is a fantastic town to live in, and a lot of people who can make that happen are going to do so. But if for whatever reason, whether it's the 7 that I've mentioned here or something else, if Boulder doesn't end up being your landing zone, that doesn't mean you can't have the Boulder area, and there is plenty to explore there. I love visiting these areas. I think you will as well. And if there's any questions that come up along the way, that's a perfect opportunity to reach out to me. My number and email on the screen. Just know that I'm always the person answering those phone calls, answering those texts, and answering those emails. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everett. That was 7 reasons not to move to Boulder, Colorado in 2026. Until I see you next time, peace.